Ahoy, friends. I just want to pop in to say hello, and whether I know you or not, I hope you're doing well. I know it feels and appears to be a very crazy time in the world right now, and in many regards it is. But don't be more afraid. Don't feed into the fear. Um, when you're in a state of fear, it's a trauma response, so people are more suggestible. You're in a fight or flight state. Um, and there's a lot of collective fear going on. And if you don't know, it's done by design. Um, but there are hopeful times ahead. Times are changing. Um, so I hope many are ready to adapt. And it's going to be a lot easier for people who have been going within because you know, I know for me at one point I've never been too into the current news and paradigm and politics and stuff like that, but there was a time in my early mid 20s when I started to get pulled in a little bit and quickly caught on to the game that it was, and it's you know, pitting us against us, really us against them. And by them I mean the puppeteers. um where are we going? You gotta go in to find out who you are, to know how you're gonna make it in this world. You gotta know that there's a piece of you that connects you to everything around you and everyone in some regard. I know many may not understand that, uh, other than conceptually maybe, but that's where it starts, planting a seed. We gotta start planting seeds of knowing ourselves for future generations, because I was born in 1990, and we're a few generations down the line into a public education and overall American culture societal system that was bought out by some people with some names I'm not going to mention. If you know, you know. If you're caught up, you're caught up. No offense, but some are so far behind they believe that they are ahead. And it is what it is. I'm not trying to offend, but hey, the truth stings a little bit sometimes. But we got to wake up a little more to realizing that there is a piece of us that has more control than they want us to believe. That that's a huge thing, especially in the Western system. We're taught to rely upon governmental assistance, the medical systems, when in reality it's this society and system that we're living in that's poisoning us and is toxic to the overall ecosystem of the earth and the human collective soul and spirit. I know how ridiculous this may sound to some, and I don't care. Really don't care. Um, if you don't see how insane the world is and that um, the whole two sides of the same coin, there's an agenda at hand. But they're trying to make it seem worse than it is, because although many think believing in such things esoteric occult things such as astrology are woo-woo and silly. It's very important and plays a huge role in our reality, in the function of our reality, as well as who we are and what comprises the energies and characteristics and traits, archetypal traits, energies that we embody when we come into this world. If you don't know about your astral natal chart, I suggest you at least open your mind up enough to give it a look. And a lot can be done with it. There's a lot to be said for it, but I say this because there's been a lot of, we've all heard in the news over the last couple of years how many rare cosmic alignments and changes and transits there have been, that I don't necessarily want to say mark a new era, but mark another phase of this said new era or aeon that's said to have been started since people debate all about it from the 60s to on till now, the age of Aquarius. Some refer to these things as yuga cycles in Hinduism, I believe. Sorry, I get some of these things mixed up because I have my own learning disabilities, but I'm trying, and I'm so interested in all of them, that idea of omnism, that not one religion or mythology holds the truth, but all religions, religious systems, and allegorical stories and myths hold many truths. And I think a lot of people would do very well if they understood Hermetic philosophy and the 7 Hermetic principles. I'm not going to go over them right now because, again, if you know, you know. There's many people that could elaborate upon them far better than I could, and that's not what this is about. This is just like, I don't know. I've been feeling so much lately, and I always am, and that's part of life. And being willing to work through it is a big part of things. And since I started opening up more about addiction and recovery and stuff like that, I started having a lot of impulsive, intrusive thoughts. And part of that is just the mere fact of like, oh, who do you think you are to be talking to people about this or sharing your experience? I think we're all entitled to share our experience. We all have a voice and a story, but it's also debatable. Anyways, since I started sharing about these things, I started having the thoughts of like, hey, if you do have a relapse, are you going to talk about it? Are you going to open up about it? Are you going to tell the people that you're now talking to about addiction? Because I don't ever want to make it seem as though I'm better than anybody. Like, I'm one who doesn't even keep track of my sober time. But point being is I had a relapse a little over a week ago. And my real addiction is to opiates and opioids. I've been an abuser and addicted to and habitual users of many substances over the years, alcohol, but the one true addiction I've had is opiates and opioids. And I picked up a bundle of dope, which is key word for H, which is now Fet, amongst other things, which word on the street down in where you gotta go, where I live, is that it's really hard to get now, which is great to hear. But I picked up one bundle and did not enjoy myself at all and felt guilty about it. But as they say, relapse is a part of recovery. And I think a part of what that means is how fast you bounce back, and a sign of your recovery is how fast you bounce back from a relapse. And has the work you've hopefully done in between your last relapse and most recent one, have you done work, and has it helped you bounce back quicker? That's part of the journey. And I also put myself in some situations that I've noticed for a while seem to trigger these emotional circuits, these repetitious cycles that I go through if I allow this energy in to a certain extent. And I like to experiment on myself. Or I say experiment on us here in America and probably in other countries too. So why not learn their tactics and techniques and experiment on yourself, and maybe even attempt to reverse some of the experiments and mind control tactics they've used on us. Just saying. It's not like there aren't all sorts of resources online that if you know about them, you can find just about anything on the internet. If you know where to go, you can learn about just about anything. And you can use a lot. You can use the internet for a lot of good, but can be used for a lot of bad. As I always say, nothing in its inherent nature is neither good nor bad. It's however you wield that tool or information that makes it either a tool or a weapon. And that depends on the person wielding it. And we have a real problem with people exerting power, hoarding knowledge so they can have a power dynamic over people rather than teach this and spread this knowledge genuinely to share and empower people. And that's what we got to do. Again, start planting these seeds for future generations of hope to know, again, their place and role in this cosmic order of things, and that we, regardless of what shape of the realm that we live within is, in some regard, from a higher dimensional thinking, it doesn't even matter. From a quantum thinking, in a sense, a holographic nature, does it really even matter? How much of this is really even real? All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled if you can think outside the box, which a lot of people can't because they're so rigid in their belief system. And hey, that's okay. We only have the capacity and ability to wake up, based off of what the nature and nurture, the surroundings, family dynamics, and I'm one of the reasons I'm actually grateful that I've had such a dysfunctional family dynamic from the beginning, is that it's left me to figure out my own path and find my own path, because I've had no familial generational path to follow like most people that have families do. And again, that's not a plea of pity. We got to stop feeling bad about, especially the people who have really endured genuine and live with genuine, issues due to early childhood traumas. We got to break some of these generational curses. Like, one of the big themes of my life has been, my dad used to talk about a family curse, the Fiato family curse. And I've had to do my own digging on that. And because I always wondered, I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like a haunting? just like ghouls, the ghouls. Um, it can mean a lot of things, such as addiction. What's the word I'm looking for? Continuing cycles of abuse, which is one thing that I've acknowledged and refused to do. That's one reason I've been very hesitant and am about having kids. Uh, just because I'm still trying to fix myself from this abuse that's done and seems to have been done generationally to my family, which, again, I'm not in close contact with, for those who don't know and are still watching. God, I've probably gone all over the place again. Forgive me. I've born with brain damage, born dead, total mystery, don't know what happened to me, but I think there's more than just me that happened to, especially if you were born around the 90s. I'm gonna get real fringe for a minute. Those who are familiar with Dolores Cannon, I resonate with some of the things she talked about. She talked about these 3 different cycles of consciousness, spiritual energy, and influx that would come into this world at specific times. And I think there's certain people and powers who are aware of this, aware of time frames that in the sky, certain cosmic alignments were going to allow certain flows of energy into this world. And some of us are a product of that. And I think that might be a reason for what happened at my birth, which I died, was taken away, don't know what happened. There's more to it. There's probably a lot of people that don't like me saying this. But Rudolf Steiner also spoke anthroposophy. I really am into Rudolf Steiner's work. But he has some very interesting ideas on what they were actually going to be using medicine for, and a certain type of, I'm not even going to call it medicine, but a vaccine, wax off. You get the drift. That they were going to be starting to use en masse. And people get really offended and triggered by that. And if a piece of information triggers you, you should really look at that piece of information and yourself and ask why. Because that's what I've had to do with a lot of different things. But I know these are some pretty far out there ideas, but these are just thought experiments. You got to be able to open your mind and expand. It takes a certain amount of delusion to kick off a revolution, but you got to stay grounded and know that you could be wrong at any moment about anything and everything, and be okay with that. That's a tricky place to come to, but it's possible. It is 100% possible. Might be chaos to some, but I was born into chaos and I long thrived in and off of chaos. And I think a lot of us have and can relate to that. But I'm tired of that. I'm tired of living in chaos. But living in chaos and dysfunction and disorder for so long and being raised by that and in that. 34 now, I struggle to do some simple things, and it's difficult to put form to the formless and trying to become the person in the father and the parents I needed when I was a kid. And I think a lot of us should strive for that. And if you have a problem with that, well, F you, dude. Straight up, fuck you. you got a problem with that, you should look in the mirror. It is what it is, kid. But there is hope. We do need to find our way back to spirit and balance that with the material, because all truths are but half truth, and material is a product of spirit and consciousness. And there's a greater consciousness field, and some of the fear I'm talking about especially relates to AI and quantum computers. And I think what they're doing is obviously not creating actual genuine artificial intelligence, but rather creating tools, techniques, and technology to act as conduits to connect to and interact with greater aspects of this greater intelligence that we are but a fraction of the whole, the all that is mind. Why do you think they keep quantum computers at temperatures that are near absolute zero, which are colder than outer space, which allegedly hold the planetary bodies and whatnot, which are the lesser gods? And we are but the atoms in the limbs of the lesser gods, as Manly P. Hall said. So, we're playing with things that we shouldn't be, but we shouldn't be afraid of them either. People always talk about the demonic side. Well, the flip sort of the flip side of the coin. It's time to end this. Flip side of the coin must also be true. And I think we're in for a very interesting ride these next few years, and we're going to see some very unbelievable things. I've already seen some unbelievable things that I will talk about in future videos, but we're gonna build up to that. I want to build a rapport with you guys first, but I'm gonna get out of here. Much love. Do.